All right, welcome back. And this is the next part, video 2, for the set play win setup for the Scraplords Bounty Bash game. So we're going to be going through the play. So set, play, win. So the first video was set. This video is going to be about play. Um, Play, a multiplayer game. Each player draws 5 cards from the top of their deck, as we did. Player 1 starts the game with an action-free draw. This action-free draw means on player 1, I called shotgun on the setup phase. I'm going to take my action-free draw. I'm going to put that right there. Player begins each turn with an action-free draw like we just did. This draw starts your actions phase. So your actions phase is made up of 3 actions. You have 3 actions on your actions phase, and they can be either activate, move, draw, recall, and attack. Each player has 3 actions during their turn. Combine actions and or mix match actions to suit your strategy. Attack and defense, dealing damage, duels, and dueling for position. An attack is successful when a value directed at a defending card is equal to or greater than the target card's defense value after tallying all upgrades. So that's depicting the dueling. If I could just give you an example of that, let's say I have already been playing. Now this is just coming out the gate. So let's say I've already been playing and I have cards already on the field. We're just going to go ahead and simulate that we have, wrong card. Now again, character cards are the ones that move. So let's just simulate the fact that we have cards on the field already, that we've been through a few turns, and now we're going to put these 2 cards head to head. Let's say that there's a backup. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave those cards open. I guess for transparency's sake, we'll leave these cards open too. So from here, what do we have? We have a potential duel. So as player 1, it's my turn. It's the beginning of my actions phase. I draw my card. Here's my draw. Now I have my 3 actions to play. Dueling. There's different parts to the duel, but primarily what a duel is essentially challenging a position. So you can attack from an adjacent position. In this case, let me see if I can zoom you in. Oh, I can't zoom you in. Okay, anyway. So let's say, maybe I can bring you down. I'm going to bring you down at my level. Okay, I don't know if that helps, but let's go from there. So, dueling for position, you can duel from position, you can attack from an adjacent space. Now, dueling for position gives you 2 benefits. One is you get to challenge the position, which means you're moving into position. You're actually going into the space, which is a movement action. But in so doing, you're actually activating an attack action. So you get an attack action and a movement action in one go. And that's how you can kind of save on, or should I say, that's how you can kind of benefit from dueling for position. Whereas attacking from an adjacent position means that you're staying where your card is and you're just applying the damage to a directed target. Now, you can do this. The only drawback to this is that you're not going to be able to claim a card without moving into the position anyway. So if you attack the position from an adjacent space and you do defeat the card, and say, let's say in this scenario, I'm going to apply all 3 attacks and it goes to a 3. So I'm going to apply the attack. So I'm going to do 3 times, so it's 3 actions times the attack. The attack value is 1. So 3 times 1 is 3 attack. Crab Cannon here only has 3 defense. So that's the threshold. So technically, that would be enough. But if I don't introduce an attack buff in calling my attack and target all at the same time, I can't go back and then add the attack after I have already designated all 3 actions to 1 attack. Because what can happen is if I designate the 3 attacks, and let's say one scenario is Lord Porco attacks Crab Cannon for 3 actions for my turn. Now, Crab Cannon would typically be defeated in that scenario. But if the player responds with just 1 single attack, or should I say defense buff or an upgrade, then that completely negates Lord Porco's attack, because the attack value has to be equal to or greater. So that means, being that Lord Porco's attack was 3 and Crab Cannon's defense is 3, they cancel out, which means that Crab Cannon would typically be defeated. But if Crab Cannon is given a defense buff, that means Crab Cannon now has a 4 defense, and Lord Porco's 3 attack does not resonate, so it doesn't meet the threshold. So that means that wouldn't work. So if that was the scenario, that's where knowing how to plan your attack and kind of supersede the threshold value, so in other words, supersede the defense value, is by adding attack buffs. So attack buffs are like ultimates and ammo, or there's also weapon upgrades that you can give to your characters. There's also team attacks. That's a whole nother thing for another video, but there's different things that you can do to combine attack to target one specific card on the board, should you be in either an adjacent space or dueling for position. Now, let's go to the dueling for position, or better yet, let me reverse that. Let's go back to the initial adjacent attack. So the adjacent attack, if it was left like this, and just the basic head-on-head, head-to-head attack, then Lord Porco didn't challenge for position, he just did an adjacent attack, then this card would be knocked out, and that card would then be flipped over to be claimed. Now that card can be claimed by the player himself or herself, or it could roll over into the next turn. Right now, being that I'm player 1 and this was the action sequences that I initiated, which was the 3 attacks on my turn, that's the 3 actions, my turn is up. Unless I have a specific card that allows me to increase my turn or increase the duel effectiveness, then I don't have any other choice but to roll over the turn to the next opponent. So if that was the case, the next play could essentially be where player 2 draws their card like they would at the beginning of their game, then they have their 3 actions for movement. They could easily move into position, 1 movement, 2 movement, that's 2 actions. They claim the card, they position their card in their back lot, and they claim the bounty. That's one scenario. If you don't duel for position, that's easily a scenario that could happen. Now, being that there's one more action, now this player can then challenge my card and move 1 position into, or should I say 1 space into position, and challenge that card for that position. And that's 1 attack, so you'd have to add more attacks to equal up to the threshold of the defense to be able to defeat the card. So that's how that would work. So let's go ahead and retrace. Let's go ahead and go back. So that would be a scenario that would roll over from a duel that wasn't successful to now a duel that is more potentially successful, depending on your hand cards. So in this scenario, let's go ahead and place that back too. So in this next scenario is the more typical one that kind of takes advantage of the dueling for position. So the dueling for position is I'm going to take Lord Porco and I'm going to challenge for position and use all three actions on my turn to apply that. But I'm not going to leave it at that. What I am going to do though is I'm going to introduce an ultimate in that process. So now my attack goes from 6, which is the 3 attack values for the actions that I'm combining, and then the dueling for position, which is the directive, and then adding in that same sequence of events. So I'm going to first claim my actions. I'm going to designate my actions, which is I'm going to designate all 3 actions to an attack, or should I say 1 to the movement, which attributes to 1 attack because it's dueling for position. So when you move into a position, the movement triggers the first series of attacks. So it initiates a duel. And then I add my additional, which I don't typically have to, but in this case, it's strategic to do so. So I'm going to just apply automatically all 3. I'm going to go all out and apply all my actions into attack and invest all my actions into the attack. And that's going to be a 3 attack going towards a 3 defense. So that would handle it. But I want to make sure that I claim this card because I'm dueling for position. And this is the next part of what's so beneficial about dueling for position. So because I added the attack buff, now the attack buff upgrades my original attack to 6. Now that 6 attack is landing on a 3 defense. So let's give the player a chance to respond. Do they have any defense buffs to negate any damage or to bring it down to less than 3 attack? No? Well then, the attack goes through. It's overkill, but it's worth it because now I get to not only move into position, but then I also get to claim the bounty by putting it into my backlot. Now, when you claim your opponent's bounty, it's suggested more so than not to keep track of the player's bounties and your bounties, to put it upside down in your own backlot. So when you claim an opponent's bounty, put it upside down in your backlot. That way it designates that you've captured it from your opponent. It just helps you keep track of how many bounties you have claimed and etc. etc. So from there, that would be a scenario where I claimed an opponent's bounty by dueling for position, using an attack buff, and kind of, using my whole turn to pretty much duel for that position. Now, typically you don't have to. Another scenario. Let's go back and reverse. So what would be another scenario? Another scenario in this situation would be I can duel for position, use only 1 attack, but then use my +3 attack buff, which brings my 1 attack for dueling for position plus the 3 to a 4 attack. Now that meets and supersedes the threshold. So that goes over the threshold. That means my attack is greater than the defending card's defense. So in this case, it's a total of 4 attack going on 3 defense. So with that being said, we'll give the player a chance to respond. Can the player respond? No. Doesn't have enough attack. So from there, I go ahead and I discard my attack buff or my attack upgrade. I go ahead and I claim my bounty because we're dueling for position, and I land into position. Now here's the benefit of having cards like the ultimates and big attack buffs or big attacks in general, is now I still have 2 actions to use on my turn. The reason why was dueling for position only took 1 action, which was 1 attack, but then I also added the ultimate, which is a +3 attack, which ultimately brought me to a total of 4. Being able to supersede the defense value of the card, the defending card, which all of that happened just on 1 action, because you can add different upgrades and different combinations in the duels to be able to make that happen. And in this scenario, being that I still have 2 actions, I can either draw, I can move, I can move another card, I can play another card, I can, yeah, essentially have two more actions to use. And in this scenario, I'm going to use them to, I mean, potentially I could, again, challenge for position here. Go 1, 2, and just reapply the same sequence of events in that dueling sequence, which is 1, 2, attack for position for a value of 1, use my use my attack buff, and repeat the cycle. But in this scenario, I kind of want to show you the scoring mechanism of the game. So I'm going to go ahead and move 1, 2 actions. So this here is a scoring mechanism. So this is you reaching your opponent's back lot actually allows you a couple of different benefits. One is that you definitely get to claim the card that reaches the back lot, and they become a champion or a hero or whatever you want to call them, a scraplord or etc. You name it. But they essentially become a trophy for you, and you place them in your back lot as your bounty value. But in that same process, granted that there's no other traps or any hand cards that your opponent can play to negate you scoring, or any gatekeepers on there that will challenge you from scoring, then you would essentially just claim your bounty. And in addition to that, say if your opponent had a bounty, and I'm just going to use this as an example. Say if your opponent had a bounty in their back lot, when you score your point, you can actually claim a bounty from that back lot, and your bounty, or should I say, and your character or your hero or bounty, place your character into your back lot, or your bounty card into your back lot, and your opponent's, your captured bounty into your back lot. So you get 2 for the price of 1 when you reach the opponent's when you reach the opponent's gate. Yeah, so that's one scenario that could happen. Now that's not typically a scenario that we're faced with, but let's say go back to the original situation. So from there, what we can do is, again, you can move, you can duel for position or attack, or draw a card. I can also recall a card from the field using an action. Actually, technically, let me rephrase that. That's not true. You can only recall a card that is on your gate, etc. Like, let me see. There's a stipulation in the rules. I don't have the full rule set. This is the express rule set. But if you go into if you go into Fun for Our Games, there's a Scraplords page that has the rules published there that you can take a look at and try to figure out how those mechanics apply. But for now, you're not typically allowed to withdraw or recall cards that are already on the active field. You can only recall if the card moves back or moves into a position. Yeah, and by the way, you don't just only have to move forward. That's the name of the game, because you want to be able to score. But typically, you can move back, side, you can move in any direction you so please. And again, that contributes to the movement strategy. But ultimately, the play is pretty much that. And with that being said, we're going to be moving on to the next video, which is win, in the winning, or should I say the payoff or the winning strategy, or should I say in general, the winning condition. So until next time.